well, since it's been spoken of recently. A character called Andrew Tate. Everyone watching this video, because I'm going to call it Andrew Tate, you'll know who I'm talking about. So he came to my attention a few years ago, before the COVID. Came to my attention, and it's a matter of looked at what he had to put out, looked at who he was associating with, and I'm like, this guy's a piece of work, isn't he? And it'd be a matter of, I have to look back and I have to admire. I can't be just like, oh, he talks shit. The thing about him is to engage with him in anything he might have to say. Oh, you're playing his game. He's talking cobblers. Selling. So you get no wisdom from him. It's like you'll get what rings as wise from that guy. But he'll be leading you on a bum steer everywhere you follow him. And while he's just doling out bad advice, he's making money. And he gets it. And he's like set up this, the war room in a circle. And he charges people $5,000 to join. And I'm like, oof, ain't that cool? And then there was a guy on a YouTube video showed up, which showed many members it had. And it's like, oh, you've made some money just letting people get near to you thinking they can learn something from you. And it's a matter of, right, I'll put it this way, right? He is like Charles Manson, but actually got away with it, actually won. Charlie didn't get what he wanted. Fucking Andrew Tate has. Right. Thing is about him, right, I'm very happy to have never ever been associated with him, or knowingly ever associated with anyone who he's associated with. Happily. Because it's like, it's not beyond this guy's, it's not beyond his skill set to be using women as honey traps and using whores as a weapon against men and taking them to the cleaners. It's like, it may well be that this guy, right, is actually I've just invented this, a practical Mac. And actually what he does is, it's weird, because it's like to those who look on from the outside, it's like an affront to God. Because no one's stopping him doing it. And you know, for what he does, the real danger in life he faces is some girl's father turning up with a fucking gun. Some old boyfriend turning up with a gun. Someone she knew before turning up with a gun. She's been groomed, she's been used, and then he can always put to say, hey, everyone's here of their own free will. She thinks I love her. And you've broken no law. Although you have, in the eyes of sort of certain moral statutes, done yourself enough to get murdered by a relative, and that's real. And he does what he does, and no one's turned up to murder him, and plenty of people have probably said they were gonna. No one's come. No one's come. And he does as much as he can in as to where it's like, this guy's a fucking lock-in, isn't he? What? It's like, yeah, he's not gonna run the risk of being out in the open and at large for someone to clock an eye on him and say, hey, that guy who messed with your sister is here. Is he? Not going to run the risk of that. That to a guy like that, that's a real life possibility, and it hasn't happened to him. And it's like he throws out this G. I'm a G. It's like, no, you're not a G, dude. You don't know what a G is. It's like, but you saying you are, that's kind of an affront as well. That's to mock God. But I tell you what, For someone to have gone to the lengths as he has to mock God and the rules and the laws of like natural law, as to blur the lines as to what is and isn't acceptable behaviour, isn't kidnapping, isn't trafficking, isn't pimping. As to just live in a country where attitudes are different and the police don't see things like that and people know to mind the business. Move to a country where muscle works on the cops, make friends with dangerous people, make it so they realise that to come after you is going to cause them a lot of grief because you're difficult people to deal with. And it'd be like, that guy's pimped the law. He's pimped him. It's like he's pimped the law. They turn up and they believe him and they go home. And even though they've got a real reason to investigate, you think those remaining investigators are going to go up against him? You think those real life people are going to put up with that? What sort of level of trolling his sort of 5,000 people in his inner circle might be capable of? How much interference he can run with people who are actually on his side and think it's hilarious and think, wow, this is like a... It's like, this guy is impressive. It's like, well, he kind of is, isn't he? If you're of that mind, it's like if you see the world as he does, it's like there are those. It's like he ain't out of the ordinary. Some people might think he is the funniest person alive, and in watching him, it's like if I didn't have a thing about I don't like pimps. It's like I'm sort of pre-programmed to go up against them. It's like they're my natural enemy. It's like if there's a predator-prey situation as to where they are predators and the sheep are prey, it's like there is a shepherd, and it's like I'm kind of the shepherd. I don't like these guys. So I have to wear that and say it's like him there throwing out that he's a G is actually, I see it as like it's just a slap in the face for anyone who knows what's right to have not like seen that the guy just needs fucking murdering and done it. I know it's that. I know it's like a straight out in the world call out. You haven't turned up to sort me out, have you? It's to flat out send out a bat signal to say, hey, I've occupied the vacant throne. Do something about it. And nobody will. There's plenty of people talk about it, but I don't see anyone shifting him. It's like, whoo, this guy's entrenched. And it's like, do you know what happens to people when they get that high in that game as to where they make things work for them? Do you know what happens to them? That's why there would, in my mind at this moment in time, for that guy to get his sort of comeuppance, it's like, there's no need. It's like he's played with powers that are beyond him to control, and they're waiting to take him down, and they're all within him. It's like you can't get away with that level of fucking debauch. You can't. It's like eventually it'll come back and strike you off your fucking feet, and maybe a matter of, oh no. No escape from the big fella. It's like when that farce that you've been mocking decides to teach you a lesson, there's no punishment going to be worse than that. And it's like, I just see it coming. I'm like, well, this farce that's at play here, this is what he mocks. He's demanding comfort from it. It's like all that lying, all that feeding that ego, it's like, it's not enough. So all that money can't stop. It's like you got yourself some exotic fucking taste there, haven't you, son? It's like it can be pretty exhausting, I can imagine, being a pimp. Sometimes it'd be the worst job in the fucking world. But I recognise as to where there's probably worse fucking pimps in the world than him. There's probably worse pimps, right, in the same city or district that he's in. As to say, these guys are a fact of life. It's like, hey, right, it's like, this guy's trying to teach you something. And I bet if you talk to him, he'd be like, I've helped people. Right? And in some ways he has. And you wouldn't be able to deny it. It's like, I'm the long-legged Mac Daddy. And you know, the reality of the world you live in, it's a matter of it is a pimp game. It's all about selling yourself. It's all about selling it. It's all about using what you've got. It's all about knowing what you're up against. It's not all about knowing that some people just don't know they're fucking susceptible to suggestion. And if you can exploit that, you can exploit them. It's like if he wasn't teaching people to do it, they'd be learning it from elsewhere. It's a matter of, I long since had a crisis of conscience where I was, people had watched things I had to say or certain observations I made about, you know, human nature on the internet, and actually took those tools or those pieces of advice I gave and used them on people in the real world for their own benefit. And it'd be a matter of, I've helped create some monsters, and it'd be like, well, better that they're one of my monsters than one of someone else's monsters. It's like, should I withdraw from this war fight just because someone might have learned something they could use to their advantage from me? Learned a tactic where I warn of something and suddenly it becomes a lesson in how to play a certain game. And it'd be a matter of, well, I've decided to take that risk. Fucking G? Yeah, he's... right, in that most people would avoid him, he can live his life thinking, oh, they're frightened of me. He's got enough about him thinking that he might be connected to all kinds of underground nefarious people, that there is a reason to believe he's got real world muscle that he could probably project, because you can PayPal a fucking hitman in Ashton-under-Lyne to come to Rochdale and fucking kill me. And it'd probably not be an expensive do if you knew the right people. And we know that the right people do exist for such things. It's just really all a matter of money. And if he can project that into the world, that's amongst his list of things that he could do. You know, mercenaries will take money from millionaires and they really don't care where it comes from. And it's like, oh shit, yeah, it's like, get to thinking, it's like, this guy has, in his way, learned the projection of power game, and he's pretty good at it, I'll say. It's like that kickboxing thing lets him down because it's a matter of he's like, ugh. But he does try and tick the boxes. He does actually try and tick the boxes as to what, you know, the Mac Daddy might manifest as. And did you know the thing he's missing it? To be like the Mac, right? You know, he's missing everything. It's like the only way that guy can grow, because he does know a thing or two. He impresses me as to how he, you know, how he carries himself, as to the deliberate thing he's trying to project into the world, the likes to offend, and hitting certain buttons as to who he thinks his enemies are, and telegraphing to them. And I'm like, yeah, he's pretty good at, he'd be good at his scarecrow for specific monsters in the world would work on everyone else. So he could actually be, when he's, because the thing is, he's likely fucked over a lot of people in the world. So it's like, he might have a lot of people who are obsessed with hating him, right? So you get people who he's actually messed with or ripped off in the world, and they start to hate watch him, and they can get to thinking that he's directly talking about them when he's talking about certain groups of people. It's like hats off to this guy. He's like, wow, it's something about Obama about him to me. It's to that level of mark, and it's like, I'm sorry, it's like there are fucking idiot girls and women in this world who, in spite of all his fucking open bullshit talk, would be like, but he's not really like that, I reckon I could get to him. And then he lovely, and look at all the money he's got, and look at all the cars. I could be the one to change him and look at a picture of him and say, he's probably all right. And actually, even though everyone in the world will say he's a pimp and she'll like a real bad boy, me. And there she goes. It's like you'll get willing participants as to say, ooh. There was a recording I saw of him who got pointed to, which was like just, it was so fucking fun. It was like a work of fucking art genius, where he went and said, what was it? I have an exceptionally big penis. Exceptionally big. And then starts to describe it, right? Openly. And you're like, people are like, it's something like, it's weird, gay about this. It's like, well, in his mind, to those who are curious in that way, it's like in his imagination, he kind of just exposed himself to those who might sexualize him. He's a pimp. So as that message wasn't meant for you, it was broadcasted to the, don't seem to be struggling to pick up new sources of income in spite of the deliberate thing he puts out. He could be just catnip to whores. They probably look at him and think, right, if I'm going to look to fucking earn, right, in this business, I would do well to have him as my pimp. Excuse me? It's like, yeah, but it's like pimp-wise, right, if you're thinking about pimps. You know, and things I'm talking about by way of, it projects into the world the ability to project power and idiots far afield. Has a platform, has connections, has nasty pieces of work in a little circle around him. Appears to be tooled up to the fuck. Right? He's a pimp. So, you know, whores who might think about, well, you know, he's a better pimp than mine. It's like, look at that idiot. It's like, no one's going to fucking mess with me. No one's going to fail to pay me if he's my fucking dickhead. It's like, if I can set that dickhead on someone who tries to screw me over, I think I'm getting paid, don't you? So it's like, roll up, roll up, roll up, roll up. It's like big double-edged sword as to where, wow, that guy is, it's like, it appears, or he has projected into the world that he is a working pimp. There's a different side of the street who looks to that guy and sees him as a kind of god, as a grifter. The criminal end of it sees it as that guy doesn't work, he has women working for him, they run it around, the price he has to pay is he has to fuck them all. Split the money with them. And it's like, likely, it's like where they say women trafficked, probably one or two. But, you know, trafficking, right? It's a good all-round get-out clause if you don't like the terms of the fucking deal at any stage of the game as to where he's actually... What's the term for it? Turned you out. Found you out. When it's turned out. Now that's about it. It's like, oh, she turned out to be a whore. He turned out to be a simp. You've been turned out. Do you like that one? It's a good one, isn't it? Turned out. Well, it turned out as to the There Goes Your Life retconned. Turned out he was a porn star. Turned out he was a murderer. Turned out he was a... So once he's like got his grips in anyway, once he's got his fingers in, he knows what he's doing. There was a time once where I got someone let on to me as to what this guy were up to, and I'm like, at the time I was like, this guy's, as to what he broadcasts and to what he looks like would it aids him, or his ideology as it is, it's like, this guy's like a super fucking criminal guy, sex offender, right? Who's come across gurus on the internet who've operated in the last 10 years. And the gurus on the internet have been what Saul Alinsky's book was to Hillary Clinton. Well, that makes perfect sense. That's kind of what I'd do anyway. That's kind of in my nature. It's like, you're right into my soul here. I am this cunt. So it's like there's certain people in the world that the pickup artist game will work for. And Rouge V was one of them. Andrew Tate. Yeah. If he put his mind to it as to game, he would work out at a certain stage that the kind of women that he's attracting using these tactics, the sort of the Rouge V pickup artist type tactic, yeah, there's a few of them. For him, they'd endlessly work, and he'd have an excess of pussy, and the kind of women that he would attract would all be people who'd be easily manipulated and groomed into being prostitutes or used as whores, you know. Easily. Because who the fuck falls head over heels in love with some guy who's dolled up who goes out in a nightclub and fucking cracks on? That is something. It's like the only women in the world that you're ever going to attract with the tactics of game ain't shit. It's like the crackpots who idealise the people who are looking to get paid. They're opportunists who like to fuck. And it's like the one strategy leads you into the conundrum of, I've got an abundance of crackpot women around me. It's like you learn all the lessons that have been put out there as that only really work for certain people and they work for you. It's like, yeah, your ability to groom and to even get access and make certain crackpots so vulnerable that they can't fucking live without you and will do anything for you. Because you might be the only person in their life who's ever shown them any fucking kindness, and it'd be that you then manipulate. Turn them out. And it's like, that's a dirty business, pimping, but it is a business. And it goes on, and there's nothing that no one's ever going to do to stop it, because as long as people are having kids and not looking after them properly, and having kids who don't heed warnings about fucking strangers if they like the looks of them, you're going to have it, and it's a fact of life. And as that goes, he's comically, hilariously good at it. Like, this guy's a... if you find yourself attracted to him, right, you'd understand why other people are too. It's like he's got a certain type of charm that works at a certain level of the game, and that level of the game you may be blind to, but I'm not. Who'd want to be that though? But saying that, you know, as a cult leader and a pimp and someone, this is the thing about him though, which is the upshot is that power, right? We don't know what he knows. He's got whores, right? Whores are the best subversive invention of God. He can have guys falling for his whores and then be shaking them down when the guys get addicted to them, and they're like, shaking people down left, right, and centre. If you've got whores, you get access to a lot of, let's say, raw intelligence, things that people wouldn't have known about themselves. And it's like, if that guy's done anyone any favours or has got any sort of, has scored any points with you, like you've taken his money or else you've, partaken in his hospitality, it's like fucking owns you. It's like, he's a pimp and a good one. I'm saying he owns you. I'm not saying he might have an influence. I'm saying, no, he owns you. So you ain't turning on him. You don't bite the hand that feeds. He's a pimp. You took his hospitality. You let him in. My view of that guy is, in his own ways, a tick that burrows his way in will be exceptionally difficult to get rid of. And hats off to the level of like pimpdom and just flat out crazy talk, confoundment. There's something about crazy talk, as to where it is an effective method of emotional manipulation, big time, even hypnotism. Crazy talk is just fantastic, and he's one of the best I've heard at just being able to flat out waffle consistent nonsense, and it'd be a matter of, in the right circles, him doing that in the right direction, in a sort of friendly way, he'd probably come across as being as funny as any sort of improvised comedian in the world. But it's like, he knows he's doing it. You know what to say, this is unintentionally funny. It's like, nah, he knows what he's doing. He's just confounding. He's trying to shock people if he can, and otherwise confounding them as to where making them go, what the fuck did he just say? And have it so you could wind it back and listen to it again and it still not make sense. As some people do this habitually, like pathologically, and it's like circular. I can find myself doing it, don't I? Circular talking. And it's like, this guy's really good. I'm like, I don't know where by way of trouble he could be knee deep in the people he knows and the schemes he has and the leverage he's got over people. I couldn't really start to think about just how much leverage he's got over whom, as to how far he's managed to infiltrate his whores. There is part of me who says, at a time of sort of war and need and necessity, as to the thing that he does, someone would be doing that. He's like a placeholder. He really is. Of who is and who isn't a pimp. The guy isn't a G. He's an arch criminal. Now, if your G is an arch criminal, fine. It's like, but there's another side to that. And it'd be a matter of, he'll find out eventually, and he'll have a choice. He might know already, but it's like, in finding out, he may not live long enough. He may not live long enough to realise as to, it's not the end of the world to get struck off. Yeah, I recognise him as having talent as a fucking pimp. Can't get past it as to where, it's like, yeah, there is women out in the world who'd be like, yeah, he is a bastard. He'll get me paid. It's like they'll all be making money together, him and the whores. And he's like, oh, I'm great around the women. Girls all think he's great. Showed him a new way of life, as to where at one time they were just pretty unemployed crackpots, and now they're glamorous, narcissistic earners who've been trained in the monetization of the old gold mine they sat on. So it's like, he can't be underestimated. And he shouldn't be. Shouldn't be. As to where it's a matter of, I think it's healthy. And I'm not saying I'm on this guy's side. No, I'm looking at him and I'm like, you know, it would be healthy for people, right, to treat him with respect as a potentially dangerous person. And I'm like, yeah, he's more dangerous than Charles Manson was, and the same creature, pretty much. But he's like if Charlie Manson made millions in something like record production or else songwriting, he's that guy. He's like Charlie Manson who made a load of money, but he's still Charlie Manson. He's still running girls. Does he tell these girls that he's on a mission to save the world, I wonder? Fantasises about being Batman. I wonder if he has that going as well. It's like if he wants to discuss those sort of notions one day with someone who understands what it is to feel as though one is driven. I'd love that. I'd love to have that conversation with Andrew Tate. It's like, who do you work for? It's like, who's your daddy? Who do you work for? Or is he indeed the man who can control and project his own perfect version of the world with him at his centre and receive all the validation that he could possibly need? Maybe he's cracked it. Maybe when he says, I've worked it out, maybe he's telling the truth. Fascinating character, dangerous, and me applying that label is I don't apply that label liberally, as to say that, yeah, Andrew Tate is a dangerous man by way of even those gaslighting on his behalf could be seen as a projection of a kind of mafia power. You sort of when YouTubers start to infiltrate that war room thing that's going on, it's like you get sucked into the guy's drama then, but it'll expose something, but at the same time it'll be a matter of that being able to attract that kind of attention again adds to this mystique that he's probably a good pimp to work for if you're in that business. Him being right, a guy who's like saying he's got like millions and millions and millions, it's like he's someone who could put it to someone as to where it gets them interested in one of his girls and say, it's going to cost you 20k. Whoa, well, you're paying for discretion, aren't you? It's like, yeah, from the point of view of the whore, he'd be, yeah, he's as good a pimp as there's ever been. As good a pimp as there's ever been. As long-legged a Mac Daddy, as to pure to the game, as to where, a dangerous one. It's like, right, look at him as this, right? He ain't the only Mac in the world. And he's a messy one. And stupid. It's like there's better ones than him. It's like, but he is the creature you're after. He is the at the heart of darkness, at the very centre of the universe. You will find that motherfucker. It's like the image he projects of the, you know, the final stage. It's a false reflection of the final stage, but he projects it well as to, you mess with me, you meet your fucking end. As to where the guy, as a black operator or gangster with no fucking cops around. I think he'd be someone who'd get what he wants from most people, and a dangerous person to have ever been associated with, unless you knew exactly what you were getting associated with in the first place. And if you did, it's like the devil's pimp. It's like he's a really good pimp. What a funny old world. It's like people should give him some respect back for his honesty about his activity. Even though half of it's bullshit, there's enough of it in there that's true, and I'll tell you, he's bang on about certain understandings. It's like, where did you pick up the overall strategy? I think that it could well be he has learned from criminals how to legitimately pimp. He's got in with like real gangster scum and been shown how, and it's like, you're a good looking lad, you could run these girls for us, you could recruit these girls for us, we'll pay you good for this. Could well have been just taken straight in and be a mafia guy, so it's in essence he's a tolerated, even made guy. He's probably made so much money for whoever has protected him that, yeah, it wouldn't be beyond my understanding that he'd be a made guy, or he's put out into the world enough clues as to say, if you mess with me, I'm connected, if you want. But that be, who knows? But he's made that, so I'm making the association. So it's like, to some degree, he's got a very, very, very powerful glamour smoke screen as to, when you fuck with him, who are you really fucking with? And if he was to come after you, from what direction would he come? So I'm like, yeah, this guy's he's a fucking brilliant player. It's like, not one to be underestimated. It's like, if you think he's stupid, it's because he's from a different planet than you are that rewards different qualities. It's like, to some regards, he's almost the past and the future in some regards. Like a digital pimp who, because he's a digital pimp, is able to actually keep more girls in line than any pimp that came before him, I reckon. And the kind of people he knows and the kind of relationships he's got are all super bonded, criminal bonded, sex deals, drug deals. And no one can get to him. And he flaunts it. It's like, do something. I find it quite a compelling character, and in some regards admirable in how far he's got without getting murdered. It's like, you play games like he plays. It's like, in real life, if the internet's allowed him to remotely groom, remotely recruit. So he's been able to avoid all these situations that are likely to get you fucking murdered off someone's brother, sister, father, old schoolmate, old boyfriend. He's managed to cut out the riskiest part of the job and it just be all money. It's like, there'll be people running sex operations all over the world, and it's a thing. It'll be looking to him as to say, well, he's kind of giving the game away a bit, but yeah, we're learning from him. Maybe he's one of the last people to jump on a bandwagon and be, hey, look what I've discovered. And it's like, You kidding me? We've been pimping for 2,000 years. And you're the Mac? And it appears I am because people have heard of me. And there's no one fucking banging my door down to arrest me. It's like he should be seen on the map as being a fucking dangerous player in the world of the internet and likely someone who could have real world effects if he was, because people say, well, if he's got so much money, why doesn't he spend it and make the world a better place? Why does he do it? Because no, he keeps that dry as to where this is a fucking war chest, this bitch. Right? I've got this much in lawyers, I've got this much in muscle, I've got this much in resources to go at you with if you want to come and get revenge on me because I pimped your sister. Here I am with my machete. He's still the big danger to him be a fucking stranger come and try to kill him, and him not even really knowing which girl it was that he's been through who's decided to weaponize a stranger against him. Because his greatest enemies in the world, which is what would bring him down in the end, will be the women who he's messed with. Not when they tell the cops, when they muster up forces of simps to come and kill him. It's like we may see the digital version of that. Not an unknown phenomenon. But it's like, for him to get brought down or laid low, what a story as to where he has the rights to his movie as like a modern day like Wolf of Wall Street of the pimping game. You know, human beings as like voyeurs and profoundly, you know, obsessed and intrigued by a criminal mind, as someone who's willing to look at the world in a different way from you would, because you find it distasteful. You see it as a world full of opportunity and money, and it be so. There's people who would be that way inclined, and say and feel that they were in their way superior. And it's like, yes, there are, and in some way, aren't they? Aren't they? Haven't they really worked something out? It's like there's been sin since the beginning. It's like these people are wide open to it. He's signed up to it. He's committed. I'm not saying celebrate the pimp. I'm saying it is what it is. So he puts that on there. He puts the I'm a G gangster. Yeah. Yeah, I've every reason to believe you are. And good day, sir.